Have you ever looked at certain UFC fighters and wondered how someone with such a limited set of skills keeps winning in the most prestigious MMA organization in the world? Fighting at this level of competition requires solid striking, wrestling, and good cardio. However, there are fighters who rely solely on KO power or lay-and-pray tactics, which proves to be sufficient to keep earning victories in this sport. That being said, let's see who the 3 worst UFC fighters are who just keep winning. You can beat him for 3 rounds and dominate him in every aspect of the game. But once he activates that nuclear button, it's GG, well played. Derrick Lewis is not your typical fighter who mixes striking with wrestling, someone who would shoot for a takedown or attempt a submission. However, one shot is all it takes to send you straight to La La Land. When Lewis finds himself dominated on the ground, instead of working his way up to the top by the book, he simply uses his brutal force to push the opponent and get to his feet. No, you won't see him trying to get the underhooks or to a half-guard position. He would simply push the opponent and stand up. When the Black Beast fought Shamil Abdurakhimov, the Dagestani fighter showed him the beauty of the Russian Sambo, taking him down at will and dominating him in the clinch and on the ground for 3 rounds. It was like that until the 4th, when Lewis decided enough is enough and blasted the opposition with bombs that earned him another TKO victory. Oh, and remember the Francis Ngannou fight? Me neither. Or rather, we remember it, but we wish to forget about it, as it was arguably the most boring fight in UFC history. When you match the 2 hardest-hitting fighters in the sport, it's only natural to expect fireworks. Well, it turned out that it was less interesting than watching a lame, romantic movie your girlfriend had chosen to watch together. Nonetheless, the outcome of this boring bout was decided by the judges, who granted Lewis another UFC victory. While October 6, 2018 is mostly remembered for the Khabib vs. Conor fight and all the drama around it, there was really a holy crap moment just moments prior to that. Alexander Volkov is a tall striker who knows his way to victory. For 3 rounds, the Russian was schooling Derrick Lewis on the feet, winning the striking exchanges, while the American was doing absolutely nothing. In other words, Lewis looked like he had never fought before. But then, with nothing to lose and only seconds away from losing the fight, the Black Beast decided to take matters into his own hands and seal the deal legally with another brutal knockout. By relying solely on KO power and strength, Derrick Lewis was given a shot at Daniel Cormier's title at the time. The Olympic wrestler exposed the Black Beast and won the fight convincingly, as did Junior Dos Santos in the following bout. However, the American would go on another 4-fight winning streak before earning another title shot, this time at the interim title. And of course, he was schooled by Cyril Gane, who was miles ahead in the stand-up game. Another ballistic missile by the Black Beast was enough to turn Chris Duckhouse's lights off in the first round, but then the Beast would lose 3 fights in a row, seeming as if he was slowly but surely knocking on the retirement door. One would think that his luck in winning fights, relying only on his knockout power, had run out, but we were all proven wrong. On July 29, 2023, Derrick Lewis turned into Jorge Masvidal and charged forward from the get-go. The confused Marcos Rogerio de Lima had no idea what was going on, as he had the Black Beast going airborne with a knee, knocking him down in the process. And of course, the subsequent onslaught destroyed any hopes of a comeback. The American lost his next bout against Jailton Almeida, but just recently, on May 11, 2024, he was matched against the 11-1 Rodrigo Nascimento, who holds a notable victory over Ilir Latifa. When it comes to skill set, the Brazilian is the better fighter by miles, as he has shown that for the first 2 rounds, dominating Lewis in the grappling exchanges. Sound familiar? You've guessed it. After getting his butt whooped for most of the fight, it really didn't matter, because at the end of the day, it was Nascimento who went on a blind date with the canvas. The question remains, how can someone with such a limited skill set keep winning? His grappling is bad and his cardio is even worse. The guy never wrestles, and when he does, he simply pushes the opponent to get to his feet. But somehow, that nuclear option would always give Lewis the punching chance, and if he connects, he has the power to knock out any living human being on this planet. Speaking of knockout power, Raquel Pennington should probably learn a thing or two from the Black Beast on how to finish fights. The American holds a record of 16 victories and 8 losses, but only 5 of those wins were ended before the final bell. No, she doesn't possess knockout power or the ability to craft submissions. Her style relies on lay and pray. Pennington does not always win, but when she does, it's probably a close, boring split decision victory that could have gone either way. Raquel was strangled by Kat Zingano, edged on the judges' scorecards by Holly Holm twice, demolished by Amanda Nunes, and dominated by Germaine de Randamie. It seems that relying on only wrestling and control doesn't always pay off. as she lost every key fight she got into. However, with Ronda retired and still finding excuses for her losses, and Nunes retired without any hints of a comeback, Raquel Pennington capitalized on the lack of competition to keep winning boring decisions that nobody remembers. In the last years, the only finish that Pennington had gotten was against Macy Chiasson. And who was that again? Never mind. Despite possessing a level of striking that is average at best, as well as submission skills that are far from impressive, Raquel Pennington is now on a 6-fight winning streak. And if you think that's impressive enough, just remember that she is now the current bantamweight champion of the world. But how? No striking, no submission games, just wrestling and top control. Well, it looks like that was enough to be the best female fighter in her division, which obviously lacked real competition and someone who can stuff her takedowns and pick her apart on the feet. Until that moment arrives, we would probably keep watching a bad fighter with a limited skill set dominating the UFC women's bantamweight division. First of all, let's not discredit what Gerald Meerschaert has accomplished in the organization. By introducing his adversaries to the gentle art of jiu-jitsu 10 times, Meerschaert holds the record for the most submission victories in the UFC's middleweight division. However, the submission game is the only danger his opponents can face when meeting with Gerald in the octagon. He almost resembles a slightly more sophisticated version of Paul Craig, with the only difference being that Gerald Meerschaert keeps winning. Most of us remember Meerschaert from his bout with Khamzat Chimaev. The whole spectacle lasted for 17 seconds, as Chimaev unleashed a torpedo that sent the American straight to the Shadow Realm. Gerald is not Alex Pereira on the feet or Curtis Blades when it comes to offensive wrestling. He is slow with his strikes and lacks the explosiveness and power to score takedowns at will. However, his ground game proved to be a snake pit for many. When you watch Meerschaert, it almost appears that he waits for the opponent to hit him a few times before he wakes up. When the American launches a striking combo, it's reminiscent of a slow-motion footage of someone striking fast. Although 6 of Gerald's 53 bouts were won by TKO, there's not a single classic KO in his 50 professional bouts, which indicates the lack of power in his hands. Prior to losing to Chimaev, Gerald was 1-2 in his last 3 fights. Somehow, relying solely on his jiu-jitsu, the American managed to score 3 subsequent victories, and the names of the unlucky fellows who tasted the bitterness of defeat were Bartosz Fabiński, Mahmoud Muradov, and Dustin Stoltzfus. Krzysztof Jotko then neutralized Gerald's grappling and won a unanimous decision victory, but the American bounced back with a big victory against Bruno Silva, pulling off a guillotine choke that would certainly make Dustin Poirier envious. But of course, jiu-jitsu alone is not always enough at this level. And he was reminded the hard way by receiving a knockout loss to Joe Pyfer and a split decision loss to the better wrestler, Andre Petroski. However, on March 16, 2024, Gerald Meerschaert was matched against Brian Barberena, a battle-tested vet with notable victories over Sage Northcutt, Matt Brown, and Robbie Lawler. When the fight hit the canvas, it was GG, well played for Barberena, who had no answer to Gerald's neck crank submission. A slow fighter with pillow hands and average wrestling and cardio, is the record holder for the most submissions in this division. And despite not having all it takes to turn into a serious title contender, it looks like submissions alone are sufficient enough to keep winning in the organization. Whether it's Lewis's devastating knockout power, Pennington's reliance on wrestling and control, or Meerschaert's mastery of submissions, these fighters demonstrate that success in the UFC can come in various forms, even if it defies the traditional belief about what it takes to keep winning at the highest level of mixed martial arts. Thank you for tuning in, fight fans, and we can't wait to see you in the next one.